Each of these machines reflects a country's economic structure. Every machine has three inputs. 1. Labor, which refers to people's work. 2. Capital, which refers to all the resources that a company might use in order to generate the goods or services that they will provide. And 3. Natural resources. The machine translates these inputs into goods and services, and because we want to pay for what the machine creates, what the machine is producing here is called value. Thus, economic systems convert inputs into value. What factors decide if the machine is capitalist, communist, socialist, or any other? Well, we must look into 3 dials in order to take this decision. The first dial, labor, determines who controls the capital. The government owns everything in the country, even down to the last office paperclip. North Korea's economy is most likely the closest to 0%. At the other end of the scale, private persons hold 100% of the capital. At nearly 66% of private ownership is where the United States is. The second dial, capital, determines how much influence the government has over what is produced. The government regulated what the economy could and would produce in economies with strong coordination, such as the old USSR. In low coordination economies, the government may mandate a few items but leaves most decision-making to the private sector. The third dial, natural resources, determines how heavily markets are used to set prices. We have economies with no markets over here at 0%, where the government sets all prices and people have nothing to say. At 100%, markets are to set the price of everything, even stuff like basic life-saving healthcare. This dial can also be thought of as managing the amount and scope of government regulations, ranging from tariffs on foreign goods to antitrust laws to net neutrality restrictions. As a result, capitalism is more than simply one sort of economy. It encompasses a vast range of different economies, complicating the answer to the question of whether capitalism is broken. But we'll give it our best shot. The dials were set quite close to what we now call free market or laissez-faire capitalism at the height of the Industrial Revolution. There were few laws, and economists at the time believed that capitalism's invisible hand, basically people acting in a free manner and in accordance to their own self-interest, would create optimal results for the economy and society. And that's how we got embalming fluid in milk. To maximize earnings, food manufacturers in the late 1800s used a variety of cheap and occasionally deadly adulterants in their products. What they were doing was legal or, in other words, politically legal, but it was obviously morally wrong. There was a public outcry, and in 1906, Congress approved the Pure Food and Drugs Act, establishing the Food and Drug Administration, which still monitors the U.S. food supply today. In current times, no economy now truly implements invisible hand capitalism, but some people are growing concerned that today's threats, such as climate change and rising inequality, cannot be managed by any capitalist system. Let's start with climate change. Growth is incentivized in capitalist economies. This has resulted in a tremendous demand for the cheapest energy available, which for a long time has been fossil fuels. The burning of all those fossil fuels definitely contributed to, and continues to contribute to, climate change. Furthermore, the desire to maximize profit frequently provides organizations with a significant incentive to disregard difficult truths. For example, for decades, oil and gas industries denied climate science like tobacco companies, minimized the relationship between cigarettes and cancer. Then there's inequality. Inequality is complicated enough that we prepared an entire video about it, but the short version is that inequality is increasing in many countries. Over the last 50 years, the top 1% of income earners in the United States, the United Kingdom, Canada, Ireland, and Australia have eaten up an increasing share of total income. In the United Kingdom, the top 1% share more than doubled from 7% in 1980 to 14% in 2014. But that isn't the entire picture. In England, the country for which we have the most pre-capitalist statistics, the share of income going to the top 5% of income earners peaked at about 40% in 1801, and then decreased progressively to around 17% in 1977 as capitalism took root. It's already backed up, hovering around 26%. Another data point. The top 1%'s proportion of income in various European countries and Japan has fallen from 20 to 25% in the early 1900s to 7 to 12% today. So is capitalism growing or decreasing inequality? It all depends. Remember that capitalism encompasses a wide range of circumstances, which means that one country's version may appear substantially different from another's. It's very feasible that inequality is rising in China's form of capitalism while falling in Italy's. Capitalism appears to be a two-edged sword. On one hand, it creates a lot of value, which means that practically everyone has more money than they would otherwise. On the other hand, it directs the majority of that money into the pockets of a small number of people. The most ardent supporters of capitalism argue that with enough grit and effort, anyone can reach the status of the wealthy. Is that accurate? In a free capitalist market, the money created by successful businesses primarily benefits the owners. Other advantages include education, health, social standing, and power. If owners modify the machine to benefit them more than others, they'd establish a feedback cycle in which power and everything that flows with it calcifies within their families. Then there's what amounts to an aristocracy. So to return to our original question, is pure invisible hand capitalism, with all the dials set to the extremes, broken? Yeah. However, it is also somewhat irrelevant because no country practices pure capitalism. Is modern capitalism, as it is currently practiced throughout much of the world, broken? It is, after all, a major contributor to climate change and, in many regions, to rising inequality. It may even be generating a de facto aristocracy in some countries, which is not looking good. The essential question is whether we can cure current capitalism by fiddling with the dials or limiting who may turn them, or whether we need to dismantle the machine and rebuild it from the ground up. This is CryptoWalk. I'll see you in the next one.